Okay, hey everybody. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ross Whiteman. I'm the curator and producer of the Yale CCAM Sound Art Series. And it is my pleasure to welcome Mendi and Keith Obadike to premiere their new work, Lift. And I just want to talk a little bit about the series. Here they are, hello. This is the third semester that the Sound Art Series is taking place, the second semester since it's been online. We're hoping to be back in person as soon as that is safe and possible. But we do have 4 events, including this one, this semester. The next event will be March 11th with Victoria Shen, who is a really amazing instrument maker, noisemaker, and just great, brilliant person. The artist and composer Raven Chacon will be with us on April 6th. And then we have Kame Ayewa, aka More Mother, who's a really amazing musician and writer and poet. If you haven't checked out her work, you should definitely, there's a lot of great stuff online. And so, yeah, I'm really, really thrilled to present all these artists and keep something going while we can't be in person. So thank you all for being here. And I'd like to thank Dana Karwas, the director of CCAM, for allowing me to do this series, and to Leo Roberts, who's helping with tech tonight. And I'd also like to do a quick shout out to Lisa Dent at Artspace New Haven, who has been helping coordinate this specific event. And yeah, a little bit about our featured artists tonight, who are we so thrilled to have back. So Mendi and Keith make music, art, and literature. Their early works include The Sour Thunder, an internet opera on Bridge Records, Crosstalk American Speech Music, also on Bridge Records, Black Net Art Actions, a suite of new media internet artworks published on Reskin on MIT Press, Big House Disclosure, a 200-hour public sound installation at Northwestern University, Phonotype, a book and CD of media artworks, and a poetry collection, Armor and Flesh, on Lotus Press. They've contributed sounds and music to projects by a wide range of artists, including loops for neo-soul singer D'Angelo's first album, and a score for playwright Anna Devere Smith at the Lincoln Center Institute. So since our last time together on Zoom, which I think was November 13th, if I remember correctly, it's so great to have you back to premiere this new piece. So without further ado, hello. Thanks for
hello. Thank you for having us back. Long time no see.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we're excited to be here, and I guess we should tell everybody how things are going to work tonight. So as Ross mentioned, we're premiering this sound and video work, Lift. So the piece is actually going to be a YouTube premiere, and so we're going to put the link in the chat just so people can go hop right over to YouTube and check the piece out. So it starts at 7:15.
This is going to panel.
Uh-oh. Let's see if can I send it to all?
And it's in it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's starting at 7:15 in a very few minutes. So it'll be playing automatically.
And we're also going to share.
We'll also share the screen from here. So if anybody wants to stick around here and watch it from here, we'll be sharing the screen here.
And that I might say that might be kind of the better way to go, because if you have YouTube playing and Zoom, there might be a bit of delay and muting issues. So I might suggest just going with staying here with us. But you'd mentioned you're going to leave the video up for the rest of the evening if people would like to rewatch it.
Yeah, so it'll be on YouTube this evening. Yeah.
Awesome.
And if you have headphones, that's the best experience in headphones.
Great.
And I think that's it for now. So after the piece is done, we'll have a short conversation about the piece and take any questions that folks have. And
yeah, at any point, if anyone has questions, just shoot them in the, there should be a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, so you can write questions there. And then hopefully we can get to all of them by the end of the evening. So yeah, thanks so much for being here. You've mentioned you mostly want to speak about this piece after the fact. I wonder maybe if you could talk maybe about the image that you chose for this, just to fill a little time beforehand.
Let's see, what can we tell you about the image here? So, I'll say the piece in general is a kind of meditation on seeing things from the sky, right? Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay.
In a big way.
Yeah, and so we'll save it for afterwards, but
Yeah,
but
great.
you know, we can talk about the process and things like that. But yeah, I think that's it for now. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Okay, so we could just, if you want to share screen, we could just hang until
Yeah, I'll start sharing the screen.
till YouTube plays it.
Yes. Just,
Wait to share until
okay. And is everyone able to see the screen there? Yeah. Okay. Great.
Wow. Really incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here.
I've known him these past few weeks and would like to share it with you. I've known him for a long time.
What is it?
When I met him, the first thing I noticed, he was very bright.
Let me see the photo.
Maybe there's an autoplay YouTube thing happening. It's all good. So yeah, thanks everyone again for being here. You just watched the premiere of Mendi and Keith's new work, Lift. So I just want to remind everyone, if you have questions about the piece, feel free to write them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try and get to as many as we can. So thanks so much. I have questions of my own, but I'd love to hear what you'd like to say about the piece to the audience we have here.
Well, I'll say that we started by, we've been thinking about doing something in response to Lift Every Voice and Sing for a while now, in part because our work is so much about, I mean, everybody's who's in Salvador is working about listening, but we've been just thinking in a really concentrated way about listening and about what exists in the tradition of Black music to tell us about listening. And so we were really meditating on the line, let our rejoicing rise highest in listening skies. And so we really wanted to think about the skies as listening and the skies as a witness, as a listening witness to our lives. And so everything kind of developed out of that investigation.
Yeah, and so as a part of that, I mean, we kind of went into the song and took the song apart in a number of different ways, but the song also led us to all of the kind of mythologies about listening skies, and so we looked at a lot of things that might have been a precedent for the kind of musing in the song. I mean, the other thing that fascinated us about the song is that in a lot of our projects we rework songs from the African American spiritual tradition, and we're often sort of mixing that up with other elements. And this song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, was interesting to us because it was a secular spiritual written at the dawn of the 20th century, and with very sort of overt political intentions. And that's not necessarily true of some of the other material that we've worked with. So it's written by the Johnson brothers, and they originally wrote it for a school assembly, right? So originally it's for public school children to sing, and then it sort of caught on and eventually became the Black national anthem, and it's had a life of its own. Most of you know this song, and people have reperformed it in a number of different ways, but we wanted to take it as a starting point for our work. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about your process with the weather balloon that you incorporated, and kind of the rig, and a little bit more about Bessie Coleman, who was featured in this piece, and who you mentioned to me a while back. It'd be great to hear kind of about like the themes of aviation, as well as what I assume is New Jersey, where you're living, and kind of maybe specifics about that land, native land of the Ramapo Lenape people, and kind of what that is, you know, when that's abstracted from kind of a bird's eye view and perspective, and all these kind of intersections that I was kind of picking up on in this piece. Be great to hear about.
So just to touch on the tech, you know, very slightly. So we ended up using a number of drones to make this stuff. We were originally planning to do weather balloons, and all set to go with those things, but the weather, ironically,
right? What a concept.
You know, one of the interesting things about weather balloons that we discovered as we were sort of doing a lot of trials for this thing is that, you know, where they drift is as important as anything else. And where we are, because we were doing all of our launching from New Jersey, in the location that we are, you can't really launch safely. So we needed to go much further north in order to have a great launch. And so we couldn't do that with all of the recent snow, but we were able to, you know, put out a bunch of drones and get some really interesting stuff there. So we worked a lot in the mountains. And one interesting thing about a lot of the mountain locations that we used is that a lot of these places are design natural spaces, right? So they're kind of 19th century sort of creative interventions, if you will, into the natural landscape. And so that was kind of interesting to us, looking at this shaped natural landscape and sort of putting those against more obvious planned communities.
I don't have a lot to say about the question you asked about the Lenape, but you know, it's interesting that the region that we're in, the words, the place names that are Muncie Lenape are kind of thinking about the natural landscape in a way that kind of suggests a bird's eye view too, because they're named after, you know, how far, what streams you are, how many streams away you are from Newark, basically.
Right.
Which was not Newark at the time, obviously, but that geography view is an interesting thing that I don't know how conscious I was of it as we're going into this, but we've been thinking about it a lot recently, just because of the way the Muncie names that remain, you know, mark those things, but also connect the Lenape land here to New York. Like we might think of these as different states, but there's, you know, a different kind of way of thinking about what kind of place this is when you think about the history of the place. When we were thinking about figures like Shelby Jacobs and Bessie Coleman, I don't know, a part of us, I don't know if Keith thought about this differently, but I'm just kind of interested in whatever we found as we went into that seeking. And it was interesting to me that they both kind of connected, especially Bessie Coleman. She connected the flying so much with freedom, and with Black freedom. So it's like a personal freedom, I suppose, being in the sky, but the documentation of it was so much about showing people what could be done. And she didn't want any barriers to people coming to witness the documentation of her. She would go around and show films of her flying, and she had a lot of rules about how it could be presented and how it couldn't be segregated as you're coming into the building. And to me, this was a really centering idea as well, thinking about what it means for us to address the sky, what it means for us to point to the sky in that history too.
And we should mention for folks who don't know, Shelby Jacobs is a NASA engineer who designed the camera system on the Saturn V rocket. So when we see this kind of archival footage of the Saturn V rocket sort of breaking into parts and returning to Earth, So that camera system was designed by an African American engineer, um, who, it was just kind of a mundane part of his job, but that kind of iconic image became one of the sort of biggest images of, it was one of the first times I think that anyone saw the curvature of the earth from that perspective. And so, that was interesting to us, and that certainly played a role and influenced the piece. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about the text, as well as maybe you can talk a bit of the, obviously there's a lot going on. There's kind of a lot of the filming that you had to do with these drones, and then the editing of that footage and the overlay of the text and the, the synthesized sounds and other kind of sonic parameters of this work. So it'd be great to talk about, or to hear you talk about like the kind of multimedia approach to a work like this and how you go about constructing something like this.
Let's see, how do you explain it?
Well, I mean, I think we can start by saying, we used the word meditation before, but I think a lot of our works, in order to address the different things that we are thinking about, in order to address them, but also in order to experience them in the ways that we want to, part of what we need to do is build something that can be meditative. And so, we could say, a speech about Shelby Jacobs and James Weldon Johnson and his brother Rosamund, but that would not really allow for a meditation. And so I think some of the building, the process of building the piece is about what will allow us to meditate on things that may not be the same thing at the same time.
And I should say that while, we're talking a lot about the kind of things that showed up in our research and a lot of these kind of early starting points for us. So, with our stuff, we start with a great deal of research, but at the end of the day, we end up going into the studio and improvising. And so there are a lot of things that are kind of happening in the moment, but they're pulling from this kind of, well of archival materials and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then in terms of the language of the piece, I guess there may be 3 moments, and we wanted to tell a story, and we wanted to address the language and the ideas in the anthem. And so, we looked at a lot of folk tales, and we ended up sort of bringing our own perspective to how we might like changing the perspective of the folktale a bit, to kind of focus in on this question of a listening sky. And then along the long part of the lyrics are us musing on what the concepts in Lift Up Your Voice and Sing are to us today. And so some things have to be changed around, like the orders of the questions in that have to be changed around in a way to account for where we are right now. But they're all, like, all of that text, that long text is really taking up some idea. And sometimes it'll be like, 10 lines about one word, you know what I mean? But we're really trying to engage, those ideas in the ways that they're meaningful to us.
Awesome. Yeah, I realized after asking that question, it was a bit of a convoluted version of the what comes first, the music or the lyrics kind of thing. But
take it that way.
But it's kind of interesting. It got me thinking about, like, with the Johnson brothers, James first writing the lyrics or the text to this piece, which I think originally was a like some type of something in relation to Lincoln, and then like for some commemoration of some Lincoln event, and then his brother John went and wrote the music, I think like within a 5-year span or so. So it's kind of interesting, like the time between that then becoming what it is today. It kind of
yeah. In terms of the Lincoln piece with that, I mean, some things that we read suggested that okay, it was for a celebration of Lincoln, but actually there are things in the text that are actually pointing towards Frederick Douglass. So he's actually
Right.
sort of on the slide making a piece that was
Which suggested it's about this time of the year because President's Day is, I think it was like a President's Day thing, but Frederick Douglass celebrates his birthday on the 14th of February. So yeah, I think it was right around now
Right,
when
right,
that
right.
was,
Interesting.
printed. Yeah.
so yeah, in the text for the original piece, Lift Every Voice, there's a lot of doubling, a lot of ways you might read it, but then those things get overturned, like you know, what does it say? True to our God, true to our native land,
Right.
right? And so people have interpreted that native land line differently. Some people think, oh, the native land line means America. Other people think, oh no, it means Africa. And so there's a lot of
Yeah.
doubling in the text, even from the sort of inception of this piece.
Mhm.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's very interesting, the kind of parallels and things of duos working together, and this kind of it's interesting. Oh, it looks like we have a question. Did you record versions of the song as part of your process at all? That's a very great question.
Yeah, that's usually how we start doing these things. Like we record a bunch of versions and listen back to them, cut them up, you know, experiment with different ways of presenting lines and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we just recorded a bunch of renditions, guitar and piano stuff, and then
Yeah, I mean, interestingly too, I think we've learned over the years that even if the piece is not going to be is not going to include one of those recordings, we have to do it to know what it is that we're really doing in the piece. And so, yes, we always do.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking, upon my listening to that, I often, honestly, I'll admit it, I have trouble processing text the first time on most listens to things. So, but I think the meditative quality really came through for me, and just the combination of the sound design and the video editing quality. It was very easy to get lost in just the sound and the visuals of the piece. So I look forward to being able to, and just to remind everyone, this piece will be up at the link. Maybe if you want to drop the link one more time in the chat for those who might not have it. So I look forward to re-listening and being able to kind of, catch different bits of it, and I wonder, kind of bouncing off that last question, like, were there any like kind of pitch choices or anything like this, or kind of formal relations to the text, to the form of this piece, or anything kind of in the DNA of this work that kind of relates in that type of way?
yeah, to the original song. I mean, we were kind of interested in um, the intervals and how those intervals, make you think about elevation or lifting, or how they hit the body. So we're playing around with the intervals that pop out a lot in that melody, and it's it's such a popular song. I mean, I guess, like, a few other anthems, it's kind of a kind of difficult thing to sing, right? So yeah, so we're interested in working with those intervals a lot, and all the things that those intervals imply.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a question in the chat. Or is this the question?
This is Tammy.
Tammy Lawson. Okay. Sculptor Augusta Savage sculpted for the 1939 World's Fair. She made a piece, Lift Every Voice and Sing the Harp, an homage to her friend and fellow Floridian James Weldon Johnson. Yeah, another sort of interesting thing there um, about I think the Johnson brothers were from Jacksonville, Florida. Is that correct? And I think that's where Bessie Coleman. I think that's where Bessie Coleman was when she had her last flight. So there are all this kind of sort of interesting connections between these sites, and the overlap between the lives of artists and aviators, and um, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And I assume a lot of the footage that you used was it kind of in the center of the screen was like archival footage of, were they necessarily specific launches or kind of just you know I don't want to say
Most of
generic launches because I feel like any launch is like an amazing thing, but you know what I mean.
yeah, I think all the NASA stuff that we use was uh, related to Saturn V or
Mhm.
Apollo 4 missions. So these things were from that launch that Shelby Jacobs worked on, and in that era where they were testing those camera systems. Uh, and so there's a kind of direct relationship too between the kind of technology that NASA was working on for those launches, and the kind of things that kind of the mundane tech that we use for drones and things now. So
Yeah, yeah.
uh, um, so a lot of those things were being worked out then.
Awesome. Yeah, and there's another question. Were it not for COVID around this country, would you have traveled to other particular sites for this piece?
uh, Possibly. We talked about it, but honestly, it was all the skies were new territories for us.
Yeah.
Right.
We've never seen any place from that view.
Yeah.
So we had lists of places that we thought we might want to try or check out, but everything was new and fascinating. So yeah, so you know the mountains right around us were just as interesting as
Yeah, we
places on the
really
other side
just
of the
had
country.
never seen, like, even places where we had hiked really high up, the
Mhm.
view of the drone was a very different view than we'd had.
But these views now are so ubiquitous, right? So they're all over YouTube. We see them in commercials every day. And one thing that was fascinating to us in this process is just thinking about all the creativity and risk taking it took to get to this place, right? Right. So now this is the stuff of every sort of car and fast food commercial.
Right.
But when Bessie Coleman was doing aerial photography in the 20s, like this was a major life
Right.
choice.
Yes,
you know?
yes, yes.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, with Google Earth and all this stuff, you can kind of poke around. I know a lot of artists, particularly photographers and filmmakers, kind of incorporate these things because you can travel to all places and put yourself kind of on the street and pop around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. So, oh, it seems like we have a raised hand. I don't know how to deal with that, unfortunately. I'd say if you feel comfortable typing your questions either in the chat or in that Q&A form, that would be best. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we
This
can't
being
see
a
you.
Zoom webinar, there's sort of like different Zoom rules than
Yeah.
we're all used to, but um,
Where do you see the raised hand?
I just got a little notification. It said,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. Now I missed it and it's gone and I don't know where it is, but sorry about that. But yeah, cool. So I guess I know you literally just premiered this, but is there anything kind of in the works that you might want to tell? Yeah, what's next? You know, um, I'm curious to hear kind of how else
Oh,
you've been. Oh, did we get a question? Cool. Oh, here
yeah.
we go. How do you see this video in relation to previous work as well as concepts of Afrofuturism? Great question. Thank you.
Well, let's see the way it relates to previous things that we've done. Um, a lot of our projects have been in recent years have been about taking materials from this canon of folk songs and spirituals and dealing with those things in a sort of more concrete way, right? So if we're doing lift every voice and sing, we're literally trying to you know uh, deal with things in the sky, or we've dealt with other things like Joshua for the Battle of Jericho, and so we've actually vibrated walls, making that piece. So yeah, it's related to other things that we've done in that way, and that is, it's taking the music literally in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Right on.
interesting.
One more. How important is it, in your point of view, for a sound artist to include visuals to accompany their work? Great question.
I mean, I think it depends on the people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a personal choice, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for us, this is something we wanted to see and hear, and you know, going into it, we didn't know what the balance of sound and images were going to be. I mean, we often don't. I mean, sometimes we start collecting images, and we think these images are just gonna help us generate the sounds that we want to make. I mean, they're just a source of inspiration. Sometimes we go in with a very musical idea, very sonic idea, and then we end up making mainly images. So I mean, you don't in our work, we don't always know where we're going to end up when we're starting the process.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I was trying to allude to this earlier. I think you know, our work has become about listening in a very expanded sense. And so that can be like learning from other things people listen to, that can be watching, listening, that can be directing, listening by showing images. It really is um, there's a line of questioning that's really central more than any particular. I mean, we have choices that are very much part of our practice that we repeat, but I think why we do something like show images has to do with how we're taking up our questions.
And I guess just kind of a follow-up to that question earlier about maybe possible connections with Afrofuturism and these kind of concepts. If you'd care to comment on that.
Yeah,
Do you
I
consider
I
yourself part of that sort of tradition, or choose, or like,
I really know what to say about Afrofuturism because
yeah.
it means so many things to so many people. Um, I know that we have been sort of put in that category before, and that's fine. I mean, um, let's see, in that, uh, I mean, the folks that we look at in that tradition, are some of our favorite artists. But then, like I said, to other people, it might mean something very different.
Yeah, and there are also people who have been incorporated into some people's ideas about Afrofuturism that did not, that the language didn't exist,
Right.
or and so like one of the things that I always think about is like what is the time of the appearance of that concept
Hmm.
due to the idea that it's actually very old, or or the way of being that precedes it. And so I don't know. That doesn't mean that I don't have any conversation with Afrofuturism, but I just really don't know how to account for these older investigations that are as important to me as anything that's happened after the term.
Right.
We like African, we like the future.
There you go. Ipso facto. Right on. All right. Well, yeah.
And
Thanks.
always have.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having us. Thank you
Thanks
for
so
having
much
us.
to everyone for sticking around and for all the questions. Again, the Sound Art series will have 3 more events, and they will be mostly things are going to get announced via Instagram. So you can follow at Yale CCAM, YALE CCAM. That's kind of the best place to stay up to date on stuff. Today there was a graphic posted with the rest of the series, but just if you have your calendar book out, the next event will be March 11th with Victoria Shen, and then Raven Chacon will be joining us on April 6th, and Kame Ayewa finally on April 29th. So all events are free and open to the public. They will be all hosted on Zoom. And so, yeah, hope you'll stop by, tell your friends. And yeah, look out for more info coming up. So thanks again. And thanks again, by the way, to Lisa Dent from Artspace New Haven for helping.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Artspace. All right.
Cool. All right.
All right.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Bye.